The Lions put on the pads for the first time this preseason, but not before handing out another bag to their emotional leader. We're going to dive into the news and notes from Detroit Lions training camp. Let's go. The Lions' new culture and philosophy has dictated what they've done this offseason. They have re-signed pillar players Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Penei Sewell. And now we add to the list today the left tackle, the emotional leader of the Lions, the longest tenured player in the organization, Taylor Decker, a well-deserved 3-year contract extension worth up to $60 million, with $32 million of that guaranteed. He's seen everything as part of this organization, drafted all the way back in 2016 out of Ohio State. He's been a part of many regimes here, and we've talked about him in a recent video, but this is a well-deserved contract, something that certainly surprised me, especially considering the fact that they paid right tackle Penei Sewell and made him the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. This new contract, 3-year extension worth $60 million with $32 million of that guaranteed, puts Taylor Decker in the top 10 of offensive linemen paid in the NFL. But he's been a fantastic piece to this offensive line, has been a huge part of the ultimate turnaround, not only for the O-line, but the entire organization. The only question that truly remains is, as the Lions hand out these mega deals, continue to hand out large contracts to well-deserved players, they're really going to have to look at what they're going to do with the salary cap and how they're going to manage these contracts down the road. 2026, 2027, they're going to have some serious decisions to make based on these mega contracts that they've signed this offseason. But again, well-deserved, set this offensive lineup for success for now several seasons. You have both tackles solidified through the 2027 season and beyond. You have Frank Ragnow holding up the center, and 2 fantastic guards in Graham Glasgow and the free agent addition of Kevin Zeitler. They are adding to what is their ultimate strength and making sure that this continues for the organization down the road. Let's get into some other news and notes coming out of training camp. Let's start with defensive tackle DJ Reader. I think the more and more we hear from him, hear from coaches, see him do his side work at camp, the more and more we're starting to think that he won't be ready for week 1. He had a quote in a recent article saying, "I don't know about week 1. I'm just working hard. We'll see about that." When you hear something like that, to me, that tells me he's setting the expectations for himself, and I think we need to also set our own expectations. As much as myself, other Lions fans, and the organization in general would love to have him ready for the preseason, I think for the regular season, they knew what they were getting into with his injury recovery. He had a torn left quad in 2023, had another injury the year before, so he's really having to rehab this most recent injury, and the Lions want to take this slow and do it the right way. But I think ultimately they're going to have to rely on the other defensive tackles on the team. Of course, Aleem McNeil, who we've spent so much time on, and I think will ultimately be a huge star for the Lions here in 2024. But the depth piece is there. Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Pascal, Broderick Martin. We talked about Mekhi Wingo, the draft pick. He's starting to show some things in camp here. So they're going to need to rely on those guys as part of the defensive tackle group to make up for the fact that they may not have DJ Reader as we enter the regular season. As we know, the Lions were first time in pads this Monday the 29th. It was also the first time they welcomed the general public into the Meyer Performance Center. On Saturday the 27th, they hosted the season ticket holders. Well, now all the rest of the fans can get themselves involved, and it's really increased the energy throughout training camp there. Moving on, we have to talk about Hendon Hooker. Article came out recently that he had been dealing with a dislocated ring finger on his throwing hand during OTAs and minicamp. And there was some articles and indications from Lions media that he was really struggling. And I guess now we kind of understand why. With that injury, it'd be tough to have a grip on the football and make the throws that we think he can make. So now that we've kind of gotten away from that, he's recovering from that injury. Hopefully we'll start to see a little more crisp Hendon Hooker as we get into more of training camp and into these preseason games. We know he's competing for that second quarterback job with Nate Sudfeld, who has looked really good this preseason so far. So that competition is really ramping up. Outside of that, let's switch over to the defensive side. We need to talk about James Houston. The organization, I think, is really in this situation where they don't know what they're getting from him. He had a fantastic 2022 rookie season where he was on an historic sack pace and really looked like the situational pass rusher that they needed on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. Well, unfortunately, he got himself injured, missed the majority of the 2023 season, and when he came back, in the playoff games, he really didn't look like the player he was the previous year. And I think he would say that himself. So really playing that Sam linebacker position along with the edge, they really need James Houston to step up. We know they brought in Marcus Davenport as well to hopefully help on the edge. But I think ultimately they didn't make a huge splash move because they know they have James Houston waiting in the wings. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they deploy him, not only in the preseason games, but also as we kick off the regular season. If he is able to be somewhat of the player he was in 2022, combined with everything else they've done on the defensive line, and we know what they've done to revamp the secondary, I think the Lions defense is in a much better spot as we head into 2024. Sticking with the defense, another gentleman we have to mention is Derek Barnes. He's gotten himself involved in many scrums here throughout the early part of training camp, but I think the organization sees it as a huge positive for him. He left the 2023 season on a high note, ended the season very well, and of course helped clinch the divisional round against the Buccaneers with that interception. They're hoping they carry that positive momentum for Derek Barnes into 2024, and he's really showing out so far in training camp. This new aggression, he's really wanting to lead the charge, lead by example, and give everything he's got, and that is reflecting, not only in the scrums, but just overall in his leadership here, as we're seeing on the defensive side of the football in training camp. As part of all that, not only the revamped secondary, Derek Barnes, the linebacking crew, the defense is really holding its own. We just talked about in the previous training camp video that we did how the revamped secondary is a huge piece to now the defense being able to compete with the offense. And you're really seeing that hold true now with pads on. We are getting fantastic matchups on offense and defense. You have Aiden Hutchinson and Penny Sewell going head-to-head on many drills. We're talking about all pros, two guys at the best at their positions going head-to-head in training camp. Talk about a way to get yourself prepared and make yourself a better player. And it's just fantastic to see those kind of things playing out here in camp. It's been a marvelous start to the preseason. The Lions have had a lot of luck. They've made a lot of their own luck. They've done the right things this offseason, re-signing pillar players, which now includes Taylor Decker. Definitely the biggest news coming out of Monday's camp session here today, Monday the 29th. So we definitely want to celebrate that. The offensive line is going to be solid for the foreseeable future. You have to be excited for that. And everything else is dictated off of those five guys. So solidifying Taylor Decker for another 3 years should ultimately mean more success for the line, the running game, the offense in general, and hopefully the Detroit Lions. Thank you guys for coming along for another video. If you're digging what we did here today, make sure to hit the like button. The subscription button and notify bell is the best way to make sure you don't miss any future videos on the channel. If you want to become more involved here, hit one of the join buttons on any one of my videos, and I'll walk you through all the membership options you have. You definitely don't want to miss out as we get closer and closer to the regular season. I have so much fun planned stuff for us. Appreciate all the recent involvement, all the views, the comments. Definitely leave me a note here. Let me know what you think about the Taylor Decker signing. Are you guys happy with the extension? 3 years, $60 million. Definitely well-deserved. Do you feel the same way? Let me know. Thank you guys so much. More than anything else, make sure to take care of yourself, your mental health. That is so important. I want to make sure I see you guys on future videos. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.